Hello students, welcome back. It's time for the new school year, and with that in mind, it's time for our first English lesson as well. This year we will be working with solutions. I'm sure some of you have already worked with solutions. This time the level is intermediate, which means we are slowly progressing towards advanced, which means that it's going well for us here. The first big unit that we are covering is called Caught on Camera, but today we will be doing a subunit or a lesson called Fashion, and we will be focusing primarily on vocabulary and listening. Apart from that, we will also focus on the ordering of adjectives. And if you're not sure what that means exactly, I will explain it a little bit later. So don't worry about that. So as you can see, we will cover two things today. The first one being describing clothes, or the vocabulary we can use to describe different types of clothes, their shapes, textures, materials, and so on. And we will also be covering compound adjectives, which I'm sure some of you have already seen in your use of English. Those are the adjectives with a little line in between them. So the adjectives that are comprised of two different words. So it's not that hard, it's not as difficult as it sounds, but we will cover it today. Now here are some categories that we can use to describe clothes. We can talk about patterns, we can talk about shapes, textures, materials, and of course other things. You will notice that amongst other you will see the most compound adjectives, the biggest number of compound adjectives here, because usually those are the words that don't fit into a general category such as material or shape. We will go through each of these in the following slides, but for now you can see them here on the screen just so you can get a picture on what we'll be focusing. Let's start with the patterns. So first, as you can see, you have checked. This is the type of pattern that you probably have on your shirts. Maybe your dad or your grandpa has these kinds of shirts, but they are also very popular in, for instance, skater fashion. You will see these checked shirts, or sometimes even we can have plaid shirts. Plaid is another description for this type of pattern. The next one is very popular. It's the flowery pattern. I'm sure some of you have worn this type of pattern before. It's mostly related to dresses, but it can also be used on trousers, on shirts, on t-shirts even, so it doesn't really matter where you use it. The plain pattern is, of course, our plainest pattern. It means that there are no special effects, let's say, on the pattern. There are no stripes, there are no dots, no flowers, no pictures. It's just a plain color or a combination of one or two colors on your clothes. The next one is spotty. Of course, you can see spotty patterns on dresses as well, but spotty patterns can be observed in different types of accessories as well. So if you see accessories, some of them might also be spotty. And stripy is pretty straightforward. Of course, it's a pattern comprised of stripes. Naturally, these are not the only patterns that you can recognize in clothes. There are hundreds and hundreds of different patterns. And specifically, you can have patterns with different types of pictures. You can even make your own patterns. So this is a very versatile area of clothing, but these are just some examples that you can use. The next one is shape. Now, the shape of your clothes decides how your clothes fit your body. Are they baggy or are they tight? Right? So you can have baggy jeans or baggy trousers, and you can have tight trousers or tight jeans. And of course, you can have a tight dress and a loose dress, which means that it's not clinging to your body. It's kind of waving everywhere. So it's easier to wear maybe in the summer, loose dresses. You have, of course, long and short. And this is, of course, not used only for dresses, as I just put dresses here as an example because they're pretty straightforward. But of course, you can use these for sleeves, for instance, for trousers, and even for some types of shirts. So if you have a crop top, it would be a short, small shirt, and a long shirt would go up down to your knees, for instance. Now, the texture is very similar to the material, which we will cover later, except that the texture is mainly focused on how the clothes feel when you touch them. So, for instance, something can have a furry texture, but it doesn't need to be real fur. So the material is not fur. It's maybe fake fur or it's some type of cotton, but it will feel furry, and this is what differentiates textures from materials. So its texture is mainly focused on how it feels when you touch it. So the first one we have is fluffy. You will have fluffy textures mostly on your sweaters or maybe your hats, your earmuffs, your winter wear. Furry texture is usually found on fur coats or maybe fake fur coats, but you can also find it maybe on some jeans as well. On the bottoms of jeans can sometimes be furry. Then you have a lacy pattern. Now, lace is something that you can recognize maybe at your grandmother's place. You know, the little decorations that your grandma knits and puts on your TV on her coffee table. Those are made from lace, but also lace can be used in many garments as well, in dresses, in underwear often as well. Then we have shiny texture, which is pretty self-explanatory. It's a texture that has a shine to it, and it can be a varying types of materials. It will probably not be a cotton if it's shiny. It will be some sort of polyester maybe, or plastic, or something similar. You have smooth textures, which is sometimes can also be shiny, as you can see, but smooth is more related to silk, for instance. So really nice evening dresses or even some sleeping garments can be smooth. They can have a smooth texture. You can have a sparkly texture. Now this is, you can see this in a variety of clothes. You can see this on sort of party dresses. You can see it on even things that little girls wear. They often have like sparkly shirts, sparkly dresses, and so on. So it kind of sparkles and shines in a different way. It's sort of, you can also use the word glittery for this. So it glitters. And we have woolly. And of course, woolly we can find in coats. On the underside of coats, you can find a woolly texture, and you can find it in some sweaters as well, and some hats as well. So again, just as fluffy, or just like fluffy, woolly is tightly connected to winter wear, because of course it's warm and very soft to the touch. So it's very comfortable to wear. Now, speaking of material, we mentioned material earlier. So unlike textures, where you can have a furry texture, but it doesn't have to be fur, if the material is fur, that means that it is genuinely fur from an animal. It means that the material was animal fur. So if the material is cotton, it means that it's a processed type of wool. You can see here that you have wool as a material as well. So of course you can have a woolly texture, but it doesn't have to be real wool. While this means that it really is wool. This hat or this sweater really was produced using wool. Leather is the same. So something can have a leathery texture, but it doesn't have to be real leather. But in this case, if the material is leather, it means that it was produced using leather, probably animal leather. You have nylon. You will mostly find nylon in undergarments and in, for instance, long socks, winter socks. You will find nylon in those, and in pantyhose as well. Pantyhose are maybe the most popular use of nylon. And you have velvet, which is a very expensive and soft material. It is used for very expensive dresses, but it can be also used for suits, for jackets, and even for other things. For instance, you can have velvet curtains, velvet undergarments, and so on. And finally, we have other, which is our descriptions that don't match our other categories. They don't fit into other categories, but they are very useful for describing different types of clothes. So first, of course, we have full length, which is pretty self-explanatory. It means that it starts at the top and ends at the bottom. So it means it covers the full body. We can, of course, say long. We had that when we covered the shape of the garment. You can have a long dress, but full length is usually used for other types of clothes which don't need to necessarily cover your entire body, and but are covering your entire body. That's why they are full length. For instance, a coat doesn't need to be full length, but it can be. And also you can have a long dress that goes, for instance, down to below your knees, but a full-length dress would go down to your ankles. So that would be the difference. So a full-length dress would also be a long dress, but a long dress doesn't necessarily have to be a full-length dress. Then, of course, we have high-heeled, which is pretty explanatory. It's mostly or exclusively used for shoes. So you can have high-heel shoes, and then the opposite of that would be flat shoes. So shoes with no elevated heel. We have a long sleeved, and of course we have matching, which means that either two people can dress the same or dress in a way that is sort of compatible. So they would have matching outfits, but you can also have matching types of clothing. For instance, you can have a red dress and red shoes, and that would mean that you have matching shoes. You have shoes that match your dress, that are the same color or the same material, or they just look good with the dress, and that's why they match. So let's analyze some outfits. I have used celebrities as examples here because on red carpets you can usually see a different variety of evening wear and a very different variety of clothes that you wouldn't normally see on the street every day, which is useful for us because then we can observe different types of materials that maybe we don't see that often in our everyday lives. So we will start with Zendaya. I'm sure some of you know who she is, but even if you don't, it's not necessary for our analysis. We will focus on her dress and her shoes. So first we need to see what is the material that Zendaya uses. You can write it down if you want, or you can just play in your head if that's easier for you. So try to pinpoint the material. You don't need to be right here. I was also guessing, but from what we have observed in our presentation, what type of material could she be wearing? What is the texture like? So is it furry? Is it shiny? Is it glittery? Is it fluffy? And so on. What is the shape? You know, long, short, full length, tight, loose. And what are her shoes like? Here you only have one option that we have mentioned, and of course focus on the colors as well, but I'm sure you already know the colors. That's the easiest part. So let's check out what she is wearing, or what I decided that she is wearing. So we have a full length, which, as we can see, it starts at the shoulders and ends at her ankles, and then on the floor a little bit afterwards. So it's a full-length dress. It is a shiny dress. It is black and red. And I decided that the material was leather because it looked kind of leathery, even though it doesn't have to be. I think this could easily be a different type of material, but from our options, this looks the most like leather, even though I don't think I think it could be different types. It could be plastic, polyester, and stuff like that. And of course, we have high-heeled black shoes. We could only use high-heeled or flat, and they usually are high-heeled when we're talking about the red carpet, but often, sometimes we can find flats as well. Now let's look at a type of male fashion as well on the red carpet. Here we have Timothée Chalamet. He is wearing an interesting combination of clothing. I will not tell you how to describe it. You can try to describe it for yourselves. So think about the materials, think about the textures, the colors, or the lack thereof in this case, and of course the shape. And then we can check together. So we have a long-sleeved, sparkly black hoodie. Here I chose sparkly because parts of it are not shining. They are, if it's more like a starlit night, then it would be sparkly. Shiny would be more like a new car would be shiny, but the stars are sparkly, so that's our difference, or glittery. And of course, black hoodie. And we have baggy black cotton trousers. So of course they are baggy, they are not tight, they're not clinging to his legs, they are black, and it seems at least that they are cotton, that they are a soft material. And we have shiny black leather shoes. I don't know if it's real leather or if the texture is leathery, but the material is not leather. I put leather here because it looks the most like leather, again. And of course they are black and they are shiny. And here you can see a nice difference between shiny and sparkly. So both of them have a shine to them, but it's kind of different in the way they approach it. Here we have Billie Eilish. It's a very interesting combination of clothing. I'm not sure if she designed it herself or if a designer did it, but it seems to suit her very well. It's very interesting to look at. And it will be interesting to describe as well, because there's many describing words that we can use for Billie Eilish here. Now we have a suit on our hands here because it's matching. We have a matching piece of clothing here. So the pants match the shirt or vice versa. So we can call it a suit or we can call it a matching shirt and pants combination. It is full length. It is baggy. Of course, it doesn't cling to her. It is brown. It is plaid, which is our texture is plaid. You can use checked here as well, as we have mentioned before. So it's a plaid suit or it's a checked suit. And we have long sleeves on our hands here, and the sleeves are sparkly. Again, we have the word sparkly. So we have long sparkly sleeves, and we have short plaid or checked sleeves here. And of course we have this very interesting piece on her head, which is also sparkly, but we're not analyzing hats today, at least. So this we will stop at the suit for now. And finally we have another Billie. This time it's Billie Porter. Here we have a totally different combination of colors and materials. So try to think about the textures, the materials, the shape, and let's analyze them together. So we have a long furry cape. So here is our cape, which is of course white. His entire outfit is white. The cape is clearly furry, but of course we don't know if the texture is furry or if the material is fur. It can be fake fur, so it doesn't have to be fur as the material, but it is furry nonetheless. It has a furry texture. And we have, again, a full-length suit or a matching trousers and shirt and a blazer. It is shiny, even though we can kind of notice less that it's shiny because it's white, so it's sort of shiny by default, but it is a shiny suit. And of course it is white, as everything else that Billie wears here, apart from his little handbag. And when we observe his shoes, we can see that he has high-heeled shoes, he has white shoes, and again, I'm presuming it's leather or an imitation of leather. So it's either fake leather or real leather. We can't decide that here. Now let's look at some other words that we can use to describe fashion. You can hear these words if you are watching sort of these red carpet specials or fashion reviews which talk about this type of fashion, but you can also use this to describe other things that you find aesthetically appealing, or other things that you find sort of not your style, ugly even, and not appealing. So let's go for the negative connotations that you can give to an outfit. You can say that it's awful, which is pretty self-explanatory, which it's basically bad, very bad would be awful. So these are of course subjective. An outfit that can be awful to someone else can be beautiful to another person. So this is very subjective, but these are all nonetheless words that are useful to you, and you can use them to describe whatever you want in this way. You can use gaudy, which is sort of a term to describe it would be too much, something that's just not tasteful or not elegant. That would be gaudy. We have old-fashioned, which doesn't necessarily need to be a bad thing to say. You can say that something is old-fashioned, and that can be the reason why you like it. So old-fashioned can be also a good thing, although it is often in like fashion critique circles, it's used as something bad. A nice version of this word would be vintage. If you use the word vintage, it's usually a positive thing to say, but if you say old-fashioned, it means that it's not appropriate to wear now for whatever reason. And you have scruffy. Scruffy is something that has been worn and torn by age, something that's not, it doesn't look like it cost much. It looks like it's sort of something that you would wear at home, or something that you would wear to bed would be described as scruffy. So it's not something that people would use to describe a shiny dress or a suit, even though again scruffy can be used as a positive if scruffy clothing is what you like. So it depends on your tastes really here. And we have some positive descriptive words. Of course, we have beautiful, cool, and cute, which I'm sure all of you know what means. And then we have elegant, which is again used for evening wear. For a beautiful dress would maybe be described as elegant. Something that you would see on red carpet would often be described as elegant, though not always. Sometimes gaudy is used for things that appear on the red carpet as well. You can say it's great, which is a sort of general term for something that you like. That it's smart. Now, smart in American has only one meaning, which means smart as in intelligent. But in British English, in British varieties of English, smart means something that looks good, something that looks stylish, and we have stylish down here, so something that's appealing to look at is smart. So if you say that someone is smartly dressed, it means that they are well dressed, that they look good in what they are wearing. And of course you have trendy, which would be kind of the opposite of old-fashioned. So trendy is something that's popular now and that is very acceptable and even expected of someone to wear. Of course, you don't have to dress trendily. you don't have to dress in trendy clothes, but it is often used to describe clothes that are currently popular or in fashion is another term for that. Now, why have we used these long descriptions, specifically when we were talking about celebrities? You could have seen that I used long descriptions. I didn't put just words one below the other, and that is because I was tricking you into practicing the order of adjectives. In English and in many other languages, adjectives have a specific order of appearance. So you can't just describe something any way you want, unfortunately. You need to use a specific order. Now, the good thing is if you have been using English and listening to English for a long time, which most of you have, you probably implicitly know this order of adjectives. So you probably won't have to think about it a lot because it will just sound right when you say it. But just in case you get confused, you can have this little chart which will help you. And I have ordered these words in a way that they can describe one specific item. And that's how you can sort of remember it. You can just remember that item of clothing and it will stay in your head like a mnemonic device. So you can remember these adjectives. So first one is the opinion that you have. So this is very subjective, right? You can say beautiful, cute, but you can also say ugly, gaudy, unfashionable, and so on. So this is your personal opinion of the piece of clothing. Here I'm talking about clothing, but of course this can be used for anything that you would describe with adjectives. It doesn't have to be fashion. Fashion is just what we are using today. Then we have size, length, or shape. These are actually 3 categories, but here and in your books they are they're treated as one category because it's easier. They're sort of in the same drawer or in the same vicinity of each other. So we can have long, round, big, little, short, circle shaped, whatever you need. Probably not circle shaped. You will not get that one in fashion often. Then we have the texture that we mentioned before. You have a pattern or a color. These are also 2 different categories, but you can use them here as one. So blue or flowery, for instance. And at the end, you have the materials. So materials always go at the end. They're not the last category in this sequence because the sequence is usually longer. It has more types of adjectives here. But for now, this is our last category. So we have velvet, lace, fur, or anything like that, wool, cotton, and so on. Now here, the first one, I have used a dress as an example. So we can have a beautiful, long, shiny, blue velvet dress. Now you can try to imagine this dress, or you can even draw it for those of you who like drawing, especially fashion drawing. Those of you who want to study fashion, maybe there are some of you that want to do that. You can try and draw these clothes and see what you get, what kind of result you get. And it's a good practice for your adjectives as well, because then you will sort of remember the order of the adjectives. Now, this ends our presentation for today. I have put some questions here on the left side of the screen that you can answer in your notebooks or individually or in your head or with each other. These are just some practice questions, especially the last 2 questions. What do you like about your clothes? And what would you like to add or change about your style? These 2 questions are the most important. You can answer them in your notebooks in just a couple of sentences, but you can practice some of the new words that you have learned here, and you can try to put them together in a sort of order that makes sense in your sentences. And on the right, I have put 4 different exercises for adjective ordering. So precisely for this chart and how to practice it. So if you are still not sure about the order of adjectives, if it confuses you, if you have some extra troubles with it, this is a good way to go through it a few more times and to practice it a bit more. Thank you for your time and see you next time.